Mr. Speaker, sir, this parliamentary debate is on the amendments to the Penal Code. But the hottest debate is on one section which is not being amended, Section 377A. Both Mr. Siew Kum Hong and Professor Thio Li-ann quoted me with approval in their speeches yesterday, so I think I should state my position and the government's position on this matter. Because of the review of the Penal Code and the amendments, I think the gay community and the activists have staged a push to get the government to open this subject and to abolish Section 377A. They've written an open letter to me as Prime Minister. They've also petitioned Parliament on this issue on the grounds of constitutional validity. And the constitutional argument was made by Mr. Siew Kum Hong yesterday in Parliament. I don't have to go into the details. It was rebutted very cogently by Indranee Rajah and very passionately by Professor Thio Li-ann. They are not my legal advisors. I take my legal advice from the Attorney General, and his advice to the government is quite clear. The continued retention of Section 377A would not be a contravention of the Constitution. The government has not taken this matter lightly. We had a long discussion amongst the ministers. We had an extensive public consultation on the Penal Code amendments, and we decided on this issue to leave things be. So let me today focus on the policy issue, what we want the law to be, and explain our thinking, our considerations, why we came to this conclusion. I would ask these questions. What is our attitude towards homosexuality? Our meaning the government's attitude and Singaporeans' attitude too. And how should these attitudes and these values be reflected in our legislation? Many members have said this, but it's true and it's worth saying again. Singapore is basically a conservative society. The family is the basic building block of this society. It has been so, and by policy we have reinforced this, and we want to keep it so. And by family in Singapore, we mean one man, one woman, marrying, having children, and bringing up children within that framework of a stable family unit. And if you look at the way our housing board flats are, our neighborhoods, our new towns, that's by and large the way Singaporeans live. It's not so in other countries, particularly in the West anymore, but it is here. I acknowledge that not everybody fits into this mold. Some are single, some have more colorful lifestyles, some are gay. But a heterosexual, stable family is a social norm. It's what we teach in schools. It's what parents want their children to see as their children grow up, to set their expectations and encourage them to develop in this direction. And I think the vast majority of Singaporeans want to keep it this way, want to keep our society like this, and so does the government. But at the same time, we should recognize that homosexuals are part of our society. They are our kith and kin. This is not just in Singapore. This is so in every society, in every period of history, back to prehistoric times, or at least as long as there have been records, biblical times and probably before. What makes a person gay or homosexual? Well, partly it could be the social environment. If we look at the ancient Greeks and Romans, it was quite normal for men to have homosexual relationships, an older man with a young boy. And it doesn't mean that they are that's all they do. They have wives, they have children, but it's socially that's the practice. So I think the social environment has something to do with it. But there is growing scientific evidence that sexual orientation is something which is substantially inborn. I know some will strongly disagree with this, but the evidence is accumulating. You can read the arguments and the debates on the internet. And just to take one provocative fact, homosexual behavior is not observed only amongst human beings, but amongst many species of mammals. So too in Singapore, there is a small percentage of people, both male and female, who have homosexual orientations. And they include people who are often responsible, invaluable, and highly respected contributing members of society. I quote from the open letter which the petitioners have written to me, and it is true. They include people who are responsible, invaluable, highly respected, contributing members of society. And I would add that among them are some of our friends, our relatives, our colleagues, our brothers and sisters, or some of our children. They too must have a place in this society, and they too are entitled to their private lives. We shouldn't make it harder than it already is for them to grow up and to live in a society where they are different from most Singaporeans. And we also don't want them to leave Singapore to go to more congenial places to live. But homosexuals should not set the tone for Singapore society. Nor do we consider homosexuals a minority in the sense that we consider, say, Malays and Indians as minorities with minority rights protected under the law. Languages taught in schools, cultures celebrated by all races, representation guaranteed in Parliament through GRCs, and so on. And this is the point which Ms Indranee Rajah made yesterday in a different way. This is the way Singapore society is today. This is the way the majority of Singaporeans want it to be. So we should strive to maintain a balance, to uphold a stable society with traditional heterosexual family values, but with space for homosexuals to live their lives and to contribute to this society. We've gradually been making progress towards achieving a closer approximation to this balance over the years. I don't think we will ever get a perfect balance, but I think that we have a better arrangement now than was the case 10 or 20 years ago. Homosexuals work in all sectors, all over the economy, in the public sector as well, and in the civil service as well. They are free to lead their lives, free to pursue their social activities. But there are restraints, and we do not approve of them actively promoting their lifestyle to others or setting the tone for mainstream society. They live their lives. That's their personal life. It's their space. But the tone of the overall society, I think it remains conventional, it remains straight, and we want it to remain so. So, for example, the recent case of Mr. Otto Fong, who's a teacher in Raffles Institution. He's gay. He's a good teacher by all accounts. He put up a blog which described his own sexual inclinations and explained how he was gay. And he circulated his colleagues, and it became public.